Welcome, guys. Welcome. As we trickle in, just kind of want to introduce myself. I'm Alejandro. I am an admissions counselor here at Baylor University. So this is going to be a great opportunity that you guys have throughout today to learn from several different academic sessions, learn from faculty, learn from people in the departments. So truthfully, use this experience, learn as much as you can from all of these amazing people, all these amazing professors. Ask them anything about the department. I know they're so excited to talk about the department to you guys. So again, if you guys have any questions, put them in the Q&A. We'll try to answer them throughout the presentation. But with that being said, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Dr. Dan Hanchey.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and welcome everybody. I'm glad to, well, I can't actually see you, but I know you're there. I can feel your presence there with us today. I am Dr. Dan Hanchey. I am the UPD, that's the undergraduate program director of the classics department and a professor in that department. And with us today, we also have some of our outstanding, fascinating, great looking, entertaining, wonderful students, David Jacks and Grace Miller. And I'm really glad that they're going to be with us today. And if you have any questions at all during this session, I think they're probably the best people to give you the answers. They're really, really bright and great people. So thank you, David and Grace, for both being here this morning. I'm going to run through a quick overview of our department, and then after that, we'll have a chance to address some questions. So please do feel free to put those into the chat. Classics, as you guys may know, and many of you may have come from classical school backgrounds, classics is an interdisciplinary kind of study. We study the ancient world of the Greeks and of the Romans, which is a lot of stuff. I mean, the Greeks did a lot and the Romans did a lot, and they were interested in a lot. We study all of it. And so we have people who come to our department interested in all kinds of different things. And that includes Greek. So we read all kinds of Greek in our department, from Homer to the New Testament and everything in between. Latin is where I like to camp out, especially with Cicero. And David and Grace will tell you how much I like Cicero, so much that it's almost kind of embarrassing how much I like Cicero and talk about it. We also deal with not only the languages and the literatures, but also the history, the civilization. These are just a few of the classes that we offer most semesters. The ethics, race and women. Next semester, we're offering a class on women and gender and antiquity that I'm really excited to see happen. Many people, when they think about classics, they ask this question: is it practical? What's the deal with classics? What do you do with classics? And the real thing that you do with classics is you become a better person. As with any humanities discipline, I think that this is what classics can offer you. It can offer you a chance to examine your life. Socrates talks about the unexamined life being not worth living. Classics give you a chance to think about art and literature, but also the world in which people walked around, history, the way people interacted, the politics. David and Grace are in a Julius Caesar class with me right now, and they're both working on papers on Julius Caesar and the way that he manipulated tradition, or the way that Julius Caesar was someone that grabbed all the power in the Roman world, and what happens when lots of people are sharing power and then it's all down to one person, and how do you deal with that person? How do you interact with that person? And these are questions that affect the way we live our day-to-day lives. How do we interact with others? How do we think critically? And in general, I think that's where classics can provide us with a true foundation. But also we get this question: is it practical? And you can see here what the Princeton Review has to say. Yes, it is. It equips you to do all kinds of things in life. And right now we have students who have graduated from our program who are in grad school all across the world. Princeton and Oxford, some of our recent grads are at those places. We have Fulbright winners. Many of our students go on to teach at classical schools. Some of you, I said, may be in classical schools right now. I don't know if you're aware of classical schools, but I get an email weekly from a classical school saying, can we please have a Latin teacher from Baylor? That's not an exaggeration, and we just don't have enough teachers to send off to them. But we are always eager to supply teachers when we can, and we do have many teachers in the classical schools around Texas and across the country who have graduated from our program. Some of our students go into public health. The COO of the Waco Family Medicine here in Waco. It was a Baylor Classics grad. Consulting. one of our grads who was interested in rhetoric, is now a consultant for a major accounting firm where he teaches about how to speak publicly and how to get along with others through your speech and through rhetoric. Energy, law school, LSAT, students who take the LSAT, classic students who take the LSAT do better on the LSAT than any other discipline. So it's many of our students go into seminary. They want to study Greek and read the New Testament in the original language. So there's all kinds of things you can do with the classics degree, and these are just some of them. We also have students deeply involved in research. And as David and Grace can tell you, ours is a department where you don't hide, where everybody knows everybody. You don't get lost in the classics department, because you come to hang out in the classics department. All the faculty know all the students, and all the students know all the faculty, whether they want to or not. That's just how it works. And you will absolutely have a chance to work with any faculty member that you want to. I've got some nice pictures of papyrus here, because we happen to have on our faculty, Jeff Fish, Dr. Jeff Fish, who is a papyrologist, one of the leading papyrologists in the world. He is a fascinating guy and handsome, as we noticed in our class yesterday. We noted that in our class. And Dr. Fish does all kinds of research with papyrus, and that's one opportunity available through our department. Other students work with other professors working on articles, publishing articles. David, this semester has given 2 papers at conferences, and I think is planning to give another one at our major disciplinary conference in next January. So all kinds of opportunities to do research and to study abroad. So both Grace and David are going to be coming to Italy this summer. This is a program that my wife and I lead every summer when there's not a global pandemic. And so I think that's this summer. I think that this is going to work out. And we're very, very excited to go to Italy and just experience life in Italy. And I'm sure David and Grace have heard me say it many times, but the thing I like about Rome in particular is the chance to see antiquity, to walk on roads that ancient Romans walked on, but then also to eat like delicious Italian food, but then also to see the Renaissance art. You can walk into a church and there's a statue sculpted by Michelangelo. All of these things are just meeting together at one moment in time, and we get to experience that on our study abroad trip. So that's another part of our department that is near and dear to my heart, another opportunity that we have. All right, I've gone through all of those things rather quickly, but if you have any questions, I would love for you to get a chance to ask them. David and Grace, do you guys have anything that you would like to share? Anything, anecdotes about the department or feelings about the department you'd like to share?
I guess one of my favorite things, you mentioned research, and I definitely think that the classics department isn't typically a department that you would think of like, oh, there's so many research opportunities. But David, you've done research on papyrology with Dr. Fish. And then I'm currently doing a research project with Dr. Jones, who's the head of the classics department, because he's writing a book on Mark Antony. And so if you're interested in research at all, I don't want you to think that the classics department is not a place for that, because it definitely is.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. You really don't always think of classics when you think of research, like Grace said, because when you think of classics, you think of old stuff. When you think of research, you think of new stuff. But even though a lot of this stuff has been around for thousands and thousands of years, we still don't know everything about it. So that's what we're trying to figure out. So yeah, something that I think is different about classics, if you do want to do research compared to other disciplines, is if you go to the classics department and you find a professor and you say, I really want to do some research in this, then I guarantee you that they're going to say, okay, let's do it. There's not going to be this backlog and all these forms you have to fill out to try to get a meeting with your professor. You're going to be able to go right away, knock on their door, and they're going to open it, and you're going to get to talk about it, because that's just how a department is. All the professors, like Dr. Hanchey said, want to get to know you, want to mentor you, want to be your friend and your teacher. And it's just a really great environment.
Yeah, thank you guys. And when I was going through my PowerPoint, I kind of double clicked at one point and I skipped over, I think, the picture of all the faculty members at our department, but we have, so you didn't get to see how handsome Dr. Fish is, for one thing, but we have a large department. We have, as far as classics departments go, we have one of the largest in the entire country. We teach Latin and Greek to more students than the University of Texas, which is, as you probably know, quite large, and more than almost any other undergraduate institution in the entire country. We have that size of a department. But as David and Grace are saying, it's a department where we all like to be together and know each other well and work together in our different classes. But our faculty have expertise ranging from Dr. Heckenlively, who is very interested in archaic poetry. And this is oral poetry of the Greeks. We're talking 800 BC, let's say, and all the way down to someone like Dr. Nodes, who researches the reception of classical material in 1400 AD, let's say. So that's 2,200 years. And that is a big span. We cover everything also in between those times. So there's lots of opportunities to find someone that will be someone you might enjoy working with, and someone who's focusing on something that you might also be interested in. We also have several different degree programs. We have a classics major that involves Greek and Latin language, and also the history and the art and all those things we were talking about, philosophy. Grace is very interested in philosophy. She pairs her classics study with the study of philosophy. We have a degree just in Latin. If you just want to do Latin, you're welcome to do that. A degree only in Greek. Sometimes we have students who come in and maybe do a double major in religion and Greek or something like that. We also have a major called Greek and Roman Studies, where we consider all of these different options, all of these different parts of the ancient world, without emphasizing the language study. So if you feel like, well, Greek and Latin are not really my strong suits, but maybe I'd like to take a little bit of those, but I really just want to read all of these things or study the history of this time or study the philosophy of this time, those options are available too. We have the Greek and Roman Studies major. So we have all these different options in our degree programs. So I didn't get a chance to say that earlier, but I wanted to say that as well.
Yeah, and going off of that, someone asked in the chat or in the Q&A, like, how can you join the classics department and if you need prerequisites? So I came in with like not having taken any Greek at all. And so I started in like basically Greek 1. And then I've taken Latin pretty much my whole middle school and high school. And so I started in kind of a higher level. There isn't like, what are those called? Like a test you have to, an entrance exam. It was just kind of a conversation, just kind of based off my comfort level and the professor's comfort level to see where I should hop in. It is not necessary to have taken Latin and Greek in order to join the classics department. And I did not feel like I was behind at all coming in with never having taken Greek. So.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. No need for any Greek, any Latin ever before. Come in and just test it out. See what you think, see what you like. We do, as Grace mentioned, we have these placement, they're not really exams, but they're kind of interviews, but they're really just conversations. They're so informal. Like if you wanted to place into Spanish, you'd have to go like take this test, and then they would like be people behind you kind of hitting you on the head with a small hammer. So I don't know how it works exactly, but when you come to our department, we just sit down and say, oh, you've had 4 years of Latin, but you were in a classical school and that was from like 3rd grade to 7th grade. And like, I don't know if I really remember a lot of Latin. Well, we just talk about it and say, well, do you want to start in 1st semester or 2nd semester, or 3rd semester? And so we work all that out in a very, conversational kind of environment.
Yeah. And to that point, I remember I kind of have the opposite side of Grace. I did more Greek. Was able to do some Greek in high school, which I know is kind of rare. But I was not good on Latin. So I came in starting in 1st semester Latin, but starting in a higher level Greek. And I know multiple people who have never taken Greek or Latin that start from scratch and they love it. It's totally fine. No one's at a disadvantage to come in not knowing any Greek or Latin, because the reason why you're doing a classics major, if you do it, is because you want to learn that. So you're coming to learn. So why not start from the ground up and get a good foundation? But I remember I was so nervous to go take my test to see where I was going to place into Greek. And it was with Dr. Jeff Hunt, who's, some of you may be interested in University Scholars. He's the director of that right now. And I was so nervous to go talk to him because I did not know what it was going to be like. And we talked for like 10 minutes about the Greek I'd done, and then 20 minutes about like my life and what I want to do and his life and how Baylor is. And it was the best conversation ever. And it was so encouraging to me. So I just want to encourage y'all, if any of you think you're going to be in that situation, don't stress about it because it's really fun. You actually get to know a professor. And Also, I was going to answer another question in the Q&A that I answered briefly, but this is probably a good question to say out loud. Sophie asked, what are the options to combine great texts and classics? Which is a great question. Great texts and classics are kind of similar in that you're reading great texts in both of them, but oftentimes in a classic setting, the goal is to do it in the original language. You don't have to always do it in the original language, but a lot of times you're reading Cicero in Latin, or you're reading Homer in Greek, like Dr. Hanchey already talked about. So in great text department, you read everything in English, usually. So that is a main difference, but a great way you can combine them is you can do a double major, you can do a great text, and you can do classics. You could do majors and minors, combine it that way. And there's also a lot of students in the classics department that are university scholars in the honors program where they choose a concentration in classics and great text. There's a lot of people that do that too. So there are a lot of ways that you can combine this to really try to get exactly to get everything out of the education that you're trying to pursue.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I also wanted to touch on it because I got to help out with the invitation to excellence last fall. And that was a question that I was getting a lot. So kind of how I think about it is classics is more like a specific time period. So it's traditionally like Greco-Roman period, whereas great text is pretty overarching. And so you do get with classics, you do get a lot more like specialized teaching in a specific field, whereas great text is a lot more overarching and focuses more on like the literature of it, whereas classics focuses on like the culture as well as the literature. So
yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, I think that I mentioned right at the beginning that classics is interdisciplinary, and I think just as Grace was saying, it sort of merges these ideas of history and politics and law and ethics and literature and art and architecture, kind of merges all of those things together, so that if you have sort of an interest in one, and then a little bit of an interest in another, and maybe no interest at all in the third, you can sort of pick and choose the way that you want to kind of emphasize those things. But then you also kind of get a holistic picture of how a society is working and how a society is functioning, which ultimately, to me, is the true benefit I derive from the study of classics. I keep mentioning Cicero, and I will till my dying day. But one of the, I didn't, when I started reading Cicero, I never thought, oh, this, old guy who talked about Roman politics is going to have an impact on my personal life and the way I think about the world. But he does. Sometimes I'm challenged and encouraged. Sometimes I think that's insane. What's wrong with this guy? Sometimes I think, wow, how can any one person think so highly of himself? But it's by looking at the way that Cicero interacted with his world, I've been able to look at rhetoric and oratory and philosophy and politics and law and see how those things can merge together to have an effect in antiquity and maybe even have an effect today. As both Grace and David have mentioned, our department does have close ties with the Honors College. So this semester, I'm working as an assistant director in the University Scholars Program. But as David mentioned, Dr. Hunt, who is in our department, is the permanent director of that program. And Dr. Smith, also in our department, was a former director of that program. Dr. Jones, our department chair, has been an assistant director in that program. So we have lots of ties to that program and to the honors program. Many of our students end up writing an honors thesis before they graduate. And that is a chance, as both David and Grace are sort of on the cusp of this experience. And so in some ways it's daunting, some ways challenging, sometimes exciting, but it's a process that nothing else can teach you, like the writing of a thesis, and it challenges you. So many of our very intelligent students end up going that route. But we do have close connections with the Honors College, and students constantly are going back and forth between classics and honors, and that is a well-worn path. So if that's something you're interested in, we're glad and welcome that.
Another quick thing that I just wanted to touch on a little bit is kind of the environment within the department, just because it's something that I've loved so dearly, throughout all of my college experience. I'm a junior right now. And it's just been in my life, like the whole Baylor experience. And so we have a classics honor society called Eta Sigma Phi that I began being involved in September 2019. And I have the honor of serving as our president this year, which has been really, really fun. And so it's definitely a good way to get involved, have good conversations with your peers. We have a take a dative every spring, which is always fun. We have like a Roman banquet. There's like classical conversations, classical games, just a good point to hang out and connect with like-minded peers throughout the week. We also have a program called Mensa Latina, that it's basically just like like Latin conversation hour kind of thing, with one of the professors in the classics department. And then every Friday we just have like a fun coffee hour, where people can just come and hang out, talk with professors. So it's definitely not like a very like you walk in, it's a serious department. Like there's always a conversation happening. There's always people to talk with. So yeah, just wanted to touch on that.
Thank you. Well, I know we're getting near time, but if there are any last questions, please feel free to go ahead and put those in the Q&A. We have another minute or two. Also, please feel free to email me at any time, or Dr. Jones, our department chair that Grace mentioned a few minutes ago. Either one of us would be happy at any moment to be in touch, to email, to Zoom, or if you're on campus, would love to sit down and talk with you and your families. So please feel free to email. David's giving us his email address also in the chat. Mine is my name, Dan _Hanchey, HANCHEY @Baylor.edu. You can also find that on the Baylor Classics webpage, which you're welcome to look at. Thank you, Grace and David, for being here today. Thank you, Alejandro, for coordinating our Zoom seminar. And again, we hope we can see you all in person very, very soon. I hope you can tell we love what we do in our department, and we love getting to share that time together as a community. So thank you so much.